When you start up a new general project, you'll be in object mode. Object mode allows you to move, rotate, and scale objects. Edit mode allows you to change your object's geometry. When you start Blender, by default, you'll see this cube, which is a primitive mesh. Adding primitives to the scene can be done in a couple different ways. The first way is to go to the Add menu, and under the Mesh menu, you can add a primitive. The hotkey to access the same menu is Shift-A. Make sure your cursor is in the viewport to access this menu. Deleting any object in your scene can be done in three ways. First, you can select your object and under the Object menu, choose Delete. Second, you can select your object and use the X key to delete the object. Third, you can select your object and use the Delete key to delete the object. Under the Object menu, you have the option to duplicate the object. The hotkey for this operation is Shift-D. If you wish to instead duplicate a linked object, you also have that option under the Object menu. The hotkey is Alt-D. Scene collections contain all of the scene's objects. You can make your own collection in a couple different ways. First, you can right-click on the scene collection and choose New Collection. Second, in object mode, you can select one or more objects and use the M key to choose which collection you want to move the objects to. If you have an object that you want to move from one collection to another, select the object in the outliner and drag and drop it into another collection. In edit mode, the Extrude region tool allows you to select a vertex, edge, or face and drag it to extrude a region of the mesh. There are also subtools available. The hotkey to access the Extrude region tool is E. Alt-E will give you the submenu options. In edit mode, the Loop Cut tool adds a loop cut to the mesh, which you can immediately slide to a new location by keeping the left mouse button held down. To add more than one loop cut, you can go to the header and change the number of cuts field. The hotkey for accessing the Loop Cut tool is Ctrl-R. You can use your scroll wheel to increase or decrease the number of cuts. The Knife tool will allow you to divide a face into multiple faces. There are three ways to access the Knife tool. First, in edit mode with the object selected, you can go to the Mesh menu and choose Knife Topology tool. You can then drag the knife between two edges to make the cut, using Enter to complete the operation. Second, in edit mode with the object selected, you can choose the Knife tool from the toolbar. You can then drag the knife between two edges to make the cut, using Enter to complete the operation. Third, in edit mode, you can use the K key to access the Knife tool. You can then drag the knife between two edges to make the cut, using Enter to complete the operation. Beveling the edges of an object can be done in four ways. First, select the object, and under the Object menu, go to Modifiers, Add Modifier, Generate, Bevel. You can then open the Modifiers tab and make any needed adjustments. Second, select the object, and under the Modifiers tab, add a modifier, and under Generate, choose Bevel. You can then make any needed adjustments. Third, select the object and in edit mode, select the Bevel tool and use the gizmo to add bevels. You can change the shape and segments in the popover menu. Fourth, select the object and in edit mode, select the edges you want to bevel and use Ctrl-B to add a bevel. You can move the mouse to adjust the amount of bevel and use the scroll wheel to adjust the number of segments. In edit mode, you can subdivide a mesh in one of two ways. Select the mesh, and under the Edge menu, you have access to the Subdivide operation. Once clicked, you can see a pop-over menu that allows you to determine the number of subdivisions. The alternative is to select the mesh and right-click to access the Subdivide operation. You will again see a pop-over that allows you to determine the number of subdivisions. If you have a complicated mesh with multiple vertices, you can use Merge by Distance to simplify the mesh and maintain the profile. This can be done in one of two ways in edit mode. You can select the entire mesh, and under the Mesh menu, you can choose Merge by Distance. You will see a popover that will allow you to adjust the merge distance. You can also access this option by using the M key and then using the popover to adjust the merge distance. To set the scale of an object, you can select the object and open the Object menu. In the Object menu, go to Apply, Scale. You can also select the object and use Ctrl-A to access the Apply menu where you can choose Scale. If you need to scale a face, edge, or vertex along its normal, there's an easy fix. You can do this in one of two ways. In edit mode, select your object and use E, then Enter, and then S, and move the mouse with the left mouse button pressed. You can also use E, then Enter, and then Alt-S, and move the mouse with the left mouse button pressed. If you want to use the mirror modifier, select your object, right-click, and choose Set Origin, Origin to 3D Cursor. Then use Ctrl-A to apply all the transforms. You can apply the mirror modifier in two ways. First, select the object, and under the Object menu, go to Modifiers, Add Modifier, Generate, Mirror. Second, under the Modifiers tab, go to Generate, Mirror. You can then choose how to mirror the object. There are two ways to convert a mesh into a curve. First, with the object selected, you can open the Object menu and choose Convert, then Curve. Second, with the Object menu, you can right-click to access the same Object menu and choose Convert to Curve. Maintaining the direction of your normals will allow you to avoid shading errors and invisible faces. As I tumble around the cube, notice how the edges of the extruded area appear see-through. This indicates that the normals are facing the wrong way. In Edit mode, under the Overlays menu, you can turn on Face Orientation. If you want to use the older way of seeing face orientation, open Preferences, and under Themes, then 3D Viewport, you can change the face orientation alpha. To correct your normals, select your mesh or parts of the mesh. You can go to the Mesh menu and access the Flip, Recalculate Outside, and Recalculate Inside options. The other option is to use Alt-N to access the same menu.